All right. Well, welcome to what we are calling Blackthorn After Dark, for want of a better name.
Yes.
It may change, it may not, but here we are. Basically, the idea behind this is that you are gathered in your favorite spot. It's late in the evening. You're squished into a comfy chair. You have a glass of wine. You're surrounded by friends, and people start telling stories. So this month, I'm going to tell Julie a story of something that I am mildly obsessed with right now.
Allie doesn't really know, but I already have a story in mind. I just kind of forgot.
Well, you
what we were
can't.
doing.
I don't want to know.
I know, but
because I want to experience it in the moment.
I'm not going to tell you.
I did tell you what mine was, but I had to give you an example of what I had in mind when I pitched this as a concept.
Oh, but I know. Great. I know what you told me, but I do have to say that our couch in particular, I'm quite enjoying it. This is a new thing. We have our nice new couch cover on here. So yeah, grab a glass.
Fancy IKEA couch cover.
Have something fun. And I don't know, Allie, tell us the story.
I'm going to tell you about the Voynich Manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to start with this guy, Wilfrid Voynich. He was born into a noble family in the Russian Empire in 1865.
Okay. Going back.
And he was educated at multiple top universities. He was from a noble family, so he was very much part of society. But then he became this very vocal anti-czarist revolutionary.
Okay.
So not great in like czar-ruled Russia. He was pretty outspoken. He ended up getting arrested. He gets sent to a Serbian prison.
Okay.
He escapes from a Serbian prison. From there, he goes to London. He continues to be this like kind of active revolutionary for a while. But then he has a friend who works at the British Museum who suggests that he gets into the book trade. So he becomes a rare book dealer. Obviously, a really clear trajectory.
Serbian prison, rare book dealer. Got it.
And that is kind of what will eventually bring us to this manuscript. So by 1912, he is running the world's largest rare book business at the time. So he kind of fell into this, but he's actually very good at it.
This is like post-Enlightenment, there's a lot of literature out there like at that time. This is
yes, this is like a big Okay. Yeah, I mean 1912.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
So, yeah.
Context. There might be young people listening. Who knows?
And so on one of his buying trips, he enters, at least we think this is how it happened. We'll circle back to this at the end. But he goes to a Jesuit college in Frascati, Italy. And basically the Jesuits need money. So they're like very quietly selling off some of their books. And he buys about 30 books from them.
And these are the manuscripts with like the gold leaf and like the hand,
most of the books he's buying in general, and for sure from this monastery or college, are like beautiful illuminated manuscripts with like really elaborate binding. Well, that's like the inside, but they're like bound in like leather with like the gold embossed. Like they're very, very pretty books, because those are the ones you can then also sell for
a lot
more
of money. Yeah, got it.
But he finds this one book there that he refers to as an ugly duckling. And it's the smallish book. It's about 9.5 inches by 6.5 inches. It's bound in goat skin, so it's totally plain. There's like no decoration on the cover. And but it's 234 pages, so it's like small in size, but like
there's a lot written.
It's thick. And there's evidence. It's 234 pages now and when he buys it, but there's evidence that some of those pages are missing.
Okay.
So no one's sure how many. And some of the pages are like they fold out in like different long sheets in different directions. So it'd be like folded up and then you'd like fold it out here and it's like a long like drawing like that, or it just like totally opens up.
Huh, okay.
So they're like varying sizes. And all of the pages in this book are totally covered in handwritten text and these very, very elaborate drawings. But the only problem is the text is written in a language that no one has ever seen before. And to this day, no one has figured out what it says.
Like not even like the top linguists, like nobody, AI, computer.
No, they have tried all of it. Well, we're going to get to all of it and all the different theories of like what this book is, what it means, what it's written in. And you can decide at the end what you think.
But it sounds like a plot to a movie.
It is. It's crazy. Like this story, I was like, I'm sorry, this is real. This is the kind of shit that I love.
Okay.
So the drawings are also interesting because it's a lot of these drawings of plants, but they're like not recognizable plant species. And also a lot of them are like part plant and then they'll like come down to the roots and then it looks almost like human body parts, or some of these are like plants and they have like human heads. It's odd.
Okay.
And there's also like a lot of naked pregnant women in baths. Lots of naked women, lots of naked pregnant women drawings.
In baths.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of like astrological constellations that are drawn, but they're like not constellations that exist that we know of.
It sounds like something a crazy person did in like a, I don't know, like a prison or something. And they're like, oh, look at this weird thing we found.
That's possible.
How old is it?
We'll discuss that.
Okay. The year was 2025.
Yeah. Well, no, he finds it in 1912, so it has to be at least.
The year was 2025. They went back in time. I'm just
Oh.
saying.
Yes,
Wild theories.
This is the
the freaking ladies.
Yeah, I'm actually telling everyone I made this time travel.
The
back
naked
to
ladies in the
yeah.
bath, just like.
So anyway, he's immediately intrigued by this little book. He buys it along with all the other ones from the Jesuit college, and essentially Voynich spends like the rest of his life trying to decipher this book. His initial instinct is that it's written in a code, so it's not just like a language no one knows. He thinks it's like coded. And he actually has a lot of experience with codes, partly because he was a revolutionary in Russia and like trying to do things on the down low.
Yeah, I got it.
So like in code. But he also speaks a lot of languages. So he's fluent in Polish, Russian, and English. And he has like a working knowledge of 15 other languages.
Kind of like Latin and Greek and stuff like
that.
Probably,
yeah, for like the manuscripts. So it's like if anybody at the time was going to be able to make sense of this manuscript, it's going to be Voynich. Okay. He has the ability. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that.
There are no rules.
Okay, so we're talking about
this is our space. This is Blackthorn. Okay, we can do whatever
we're talking about age, and he thinks it dates back to the 13th century. This is his educated rare book dealer guess at the time.
Okay,
and his best guess is that it's some sort of like field guide that's used in a field that's called at the time natural philosophy.
Kind of like Darwin style
kind
stuff?
Of. So it's basically like early science. So everyone from like Aristotle to Isaac Newton was technically like a natural philosopher in the time. Mm-hmm. We would call them scientists today probably, but that was the word they had for it then. Okay. But he actually thinks it's a little bit more specific than that. So he thinks that this is a secret manual for the practice of alchemy.
Okay.
And if you know what alchemy is basically like part science, part magic, that emerged from medieval Europe in the 12th century. And a lot of what the practitioners would do, they would try to like purify different materials. So like a lot of it was like trying to turn like purify lead into gold. Mm-hmm. They did spend some time.
There's a lot of that for sure.
Like doing things that they thought would like cure diseases and stuff. But
it's like the Sorcerer's Stone, basically.
We're gonna get to that.
Oh, my bad. Okay. I don't know. I'm guessing all this shit because I literally have a tattoo from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is kind of weirdly sounds like a little bit. It's not.
Is that about alchemists?
No, just like the guide itself is full of all of this information about planets and places all over.
This is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is what you're saying.
Like,
so you're saying aliens?
It sounds like the Hitchhiker's Guide in the way.
Is Hitchhiker's Guide to Aliens? I've never seen that.
Oh God, it's a book.
I've never read it. The book. It's also a movie.
I know, but the
okay. I was like, am I wrong?
No, but the movie is as someone who carries the number 42 on her body.
It's from the book. You're telling me.
Yeah. Okay. So my whole point, not to get distracted, but my whole point is that the Hitchhiker's Guide is like something that has writers, people that travel, and they contribute by observing other cultures around the universe, right? But it's supposed to be able to be read by whoever has it in whatever tongue or native language.
Gotcha.
So that's the thing that
it's universal.
Exactly. It doesn't translate because you yourself, if you open the book, should be able to
read it no matter what.
It should be. We would read it in English. Someone else would read it in whatever language.
If this is that something got broken and now no one knows how to read
or
we haven't found who knows how to read it yet.
Yeah, because I mean the Hitchhiker's Guide's technically digital, but that's debatable.
Okay.
Moving on. Sorry. I have all this. This is why my brain goes crazy, because this is the kind of shit that I also really like. So
great.
Move on.
Okay. So we're talking about alchemy. Alchemists, they want to turn lead into gold. Who doesn't? But their basic, like the main objective for an alchemist is what they call the purification of the soul. And they do this basically by creating a magnum opus, like this great work. And so part of that is writing it down. But the big part of that is that the work is the Philosopher's Stone. So you've read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's this magical substance that is said to grant immortality, among other things. And that is like the end goal of all alchemists. Figure out how to forge your own Philosopher's Stone.
Got it.
And so that he thinks it's from the 13th century. He thinks that's what it is. And he thinks
Nicholas Flamel figured it out in the book.
Right. So he thinks in the real world, not the Harry Potter world, that he's like, there's only one early alchemist in this time frame that would be brilliant enough to produce a book like this. And that is this guy called Roger Bacon. Okay. Probably distantly related to Kevin Bacon, but I didn't.
Well, there's always 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah. I'm sure we could get Roger is his
Roger
name?
Bacon.
Roger Bacon.
So almost nobody in Europe was actually like creating alchemy textbooks at that time. They were basically just like translating and like copying over older works. But Voynich thinks that that's what this is. It's an alchemy textbook. And he thinks that this particular book was basically written in code because whoever wrote it needed to keep it secret. So let me tell you a little bit about Roger Bacon.
Got it.
So you can get the feel for that.
Senior Bacon.
He was a scientist or a natural philosopher.
Got it.
He was a really early pioneer of the scientific method. He was also the first person in Europe to record the formula for gunpowder. So whether or not that's good, I don't know, but he did it. And he was an alchemist, but he was also a monk.
Okay, they all are monks.
Well,
I'm just saying, somehow this all ends up.
I always
no matter what we're talking about, it's monasteries and monks, and
he's a monk. I think he's a Franciscan.
The Etruscans.
Monk.
I don't know. Are we just?
Well, they weren't monks.
I know. Is it? I'm just giving an example of our history with this kind of thing.
Yes. So he's a monk, and that's kind of antithetical because the church basically didn't take too kindly to some of his more out there alchemy practices. Some people in the church just straight up accused him, like they called him a wizard. They didn't like all this stuff he was dealing with. Okay. And he was a bit odd. He had this automated mechanical head that he would talk to, and it would respond to him. I think maybe only in yes or no answers, but I picture it like that. Those like carnival fortune tellers, like Zoltar or whatever.
Yeah, like.
But he had it was like
his mouth would just kind of go.
Yeah, but it was like made of metal, I think. So he had one of those that he would talk to a lot. So like that was his.
Okay.
If you're getting an idea for this person, and he, like all alchemists, he was very obsessed with forging a Philosopher's Stone. Okay. Like that was still his main goal. And that was kind of really the main issue for the church, because in the church, only God is supposed to be able to grant immortality. And he's like, I'm going to do it.
Well, it's your like immortal soul goes to heaven or whatever, right? That's like the whole, you become immortal after your body dies or whatever.
But he's trying to do it here on earth. And that's like
the devil.
Well, it's very heretical.
Yeah.
So his viewpoint was that there's a way to like marry the church and science. Essentially, you can argue whether or not alchemy is actually science, but there's elements of science to it. They were trying to like craft something somewhat scientifically.
It's like spiritualism and like an actual empirical science kind of mixed together a little bit.
And he was kind of allowed to put these ideas forth and be pretty vocal about them because he had this really, really high placed patron in the church, and that was Pope Clement IV. He really liked Roger Bacon, and so Roger Bacon kind of had carte blanche to be like, I'm a monk, but I'm also going to spread some of these
Our
ideas.
new pope's from Chicago, baby.
And what does that do for you?
America. I was watching The Daily Show last night, and it cracked me up. And they're like, why didn't he give a speech in English? I know, sorry, not to get sidetracked, but that I was laughing my ass off when I watched that last night. Anyways, sorry, continue, Mr. Bacon.
So he had this pope, but then Clement dies in 1286, and Bacon's protection is basically gone. And within a decade, he's actually put in prison. He gets out of prison eventually. He's allowed to like return to studying, but he never puts forth any more of these like, he never is public with any more of these like alchemical, heretical, quote unquote ideas. He like just publishes like theology.
So he kind of like goes underground essentially, like with that kind of stuff, which the coding stuff makes sense.
Right. So it was like theoretically he just stops doing it, or he continued his alchemical research in secret and wrote it all into a coded book. And this is that book. That's Voynich's.
Do they have any other writings of his that like survived that they like compared them to, or? That's
a great question. I don't know.
Because that's like, it would be interesting to see like if any of his original thoughts or like okay texts, like acceptable texts of the church.
Right. Even just like theological text.
Because like it's not like I'm not talking handwriting analysis and that kind of bullshit, because he's writing code, and obviously it was if it was him, he's an artist, right? So like it was illustrated.
It is illustrated, yeah.
So like but I'd be curious to know, like, because a lot of documents like that have survived, but a lot of them also have been burned and bombed. Yeah. So I don't really know.
I do not know. I mean, clearly we know a lot about Roger Bacon, so I would imagine that some of his,
I'm assuming other people wrote about this person as well.
Right. Some of his like we know this was his survived. I didn't see any information. I didn't like specifically search. There was a comparison. It's just
like a point of like curiosity. I'm sure someone's...
Good question. I don't know the answer. And spoiler alert. Well, it's not him. And I'll tell you why.
Damn it. I was really behind this Bacon guy.
There are a lot of theories after this that we can discuss. That's just like any of them could technically be true.
Okay.
But we're pretty sure his is not, and I'll tell you why in just a second.
Okay.
But anyway, at the time, Voynich is still convinced this is a 13th century manuscript and it's written by Bacon.
Got it.
And his goal, while still trying to figure out what it even says, is to prove that Bacon wrote it, because if he can do that, it's worth a lot of money, like millions and millions. If you can prove that this is like an alchemical text by Roger Bacon.
Yeah, because at that point, it's what, 500 years old or 600 years old or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. And he actually does find some possible proof. So Voynich finds this letter that's from 1665 that's written by a Czech scientist named Jan Marek Marchi, so this is like obviously after Roger Bacon, but he claims that he is in possession of this coded book that he's going to send to his other friend, who's a renowned like code breaker, Anathesis Kircher, your favorite ancient code breaker.
Anathesis and I go way back. That PhD I don't have in that history.
Basically, Marcher tells Kircher what he knows about this book was that it was bought about 100 years prior by the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II for a large sum of gold, as you do. Mm-hmm. And it was believed then to have been written by Roger Bacon.
Okay, so when it was
in the late
sold
1200s. So this is we're now in 1665, but in like the mid to late 1500s, the Holy Roman Emperor bought this book because it was a book by Roger Bacon.
Okay.
But now this Marchi guy has it in 1665 and it's in code and still no one's figured out the code. So he sends it to this code breaker guy who doesn't figure it out. But unfortunately, that's like all the proof. He finds this letter that mentions a book like this attributed to Roger Bacon.
Got it.
But that's all the proof he's able to come up with in his lifetime. So he's never really able to definitively prove it's written by Roger Bacon, and he was never able to crack the code and figure out what the book even says. So Voynich died in 1930. He left the book to his wife, Ethel. She lives another 30 years, so she doesn't die until the 1960s. And when she dies, there might have been a couple other things in between, but basically the book ends up at Yale.
Okay.
And that's where it still is today, actually.
I mean, It makes sense to go to like a big university library or some kind of special Smithsonian, I don't know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. But that's not where the story or the mystery of the Voynich manuscript ends. So here's what I was mentioning before. So in 2009, there's researchers at the University of Arizona. They're studying the manuscript. And even though no one has been able to figure out what it says, they figure they can at least figure out like the actual physical makeup of this book.
So like the paper and like the leather and like.
So they have the book analyzed, and because the pages are made of like calf skin parchment and they're inorganic material, they can have it radiocarbon dated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was gonna kind of ask about that, because that's kind of like a really logical. If you can also test the.
I just don't think you could do that in 1912.
No, but you can take. You can do. They could have done some. They could have done some calculations, but they might not have been correct.
Right. Okay. So they do that, and it turns out that the pages actually date back to the 15th century, so about 140 years after Roger Bacon.
Okay, so no more Bacon.
So it's unless Bacon is the time traveler, it's probably not Bacon.
You know, there's a lot of movies about time travel.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
I'm not.
Okay.
Listen, there are a lot of options as to what this is. So they figure out it's 15th century, and now they're kind of doing the same thing Voynich did, where they're like, okay, we know when it's from, who in that time period would make sense as an author, which is kind of like Voynich, for whatever reason, he was like, this is a 13th century manuscript. So he was like, who in the 13th century would write something like this? That's why he got fixated on.
And his
Bacon.
like logical answer was pretty
good.
Yeah,
if it was a 13th century manuscript, seemed like Bacon is a contender. But now we know it's a 15th century manuscript. So they're like, who is this? So in the 1400s, who was known to be an author and an illustrator, who had like an interest in science and alchemy, and who was writing in code? Do you have a guess?
I don't know. I think it's like Chaucer or someone like that. Is that 15th century? Yeah, right?
I don't know when Chaucer was, but that's not good.
Okay.
Well, so in 2017, this one researcher announces that she's pretty sure she knows who wrote it, and she
By the
actually
way, I'm pretty sure Chaucer was way before that, and my brain's just being stupid.
This thought.
Sorry, whoever's watching this. Okay,
listen,
I don't want to be corrected because my brain's not working. So who?
But she has this idea. She actually had this idea. She comes out with this published article in the 15th century, so it's like the 1400s.
Yeah.
In 2007, but she had this idea back in 2002 where she published a different article comparing the similarities between the Voynich manuscript and the journals of Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, Da Vinci. There we go. That makes way more sense than what I said.
And now, so she had that original article. She just was like putting them side by side. Like, here's the Voynich manuscript and what it looks like. Here's Da Vinci's journals, because we have a lot of Da Vinci's journals. And she was just like noting similarities at the time. Then now that she has the confirmation that it is a 15th century manuscript instead of a 13th century manuscript, she's even more convinced that it's Da Vinci.
Like when you were describing the book in the very beginning of the story, it reminded me of Da Vinci's drawings because he did have folded out pages and like different shapes of things in his like artistic manuscripts. And those are things that I actually, we've seen pictures of those. We've seen like images and different classes and like history, stuff like that. That was the first name that came to mind because I was like, oh, that's interesting. It sounds like him. But I was like, I don't know. It didn't sound like something. It didn't feel like something I would have thought Da Vinci would have done.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so that's basically our first actually, well, I'll say actually possible. There's a lot of really out there options, but here's the ones we're voting between since we're pretty sure it's not Roger Bacon.
So it's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Da Vinci, or...
but there is actually a lot of evidence. There are things that could point to this actually being a Da Vinci manuscript. And one of those things is the actual writing styles are very similar. So both the Voynich manuscripts and Da Vinci's journals are written in what's called a humanist minuscule script. Your favorite?
Is that your handwriting?
It's actually way more similar to how everyone, not just my handwriting, write today. But at the time, it was not the norm. So most documents at the time were written in something called Gothic script, which are just like big block letters. A lot of them are capital. Like if you saw a picture of it, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't like, because writing wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. Like now it's easy to just like write on a notebook and be like, oh, I'm scribbling this down for later. But that was like, it was more of you wrote to like make something kind of pretty.
Okay.
But these are not written in that. There's in this. It looks more like handwriting,
like that we
would encounter today.
Okay.
In addition to the style of writing, there are other similarities. So neither author, Da Vinci or whoever wrote the Voynich manuscript, neither of them use capital letters. Neither of them use any punctuation. There are no like distinct line breaks or paragraph breaks, and they don't connect any of their letters.
Okay.
And when it comes to the drawings, it's interesting because obviously if you see some of these drawings, and we can maybe put some pictures in this video. I don't know. We're learning.
I can't. I will say now that I'm pretty sure we can put a few pictures.
So we'll put a few pictures of some of these drawings throughout this video, but they're not anywhere near like the finished works of Da Vinci, who's obviously a great artist.
Yeah.
But they're not like so dissimilar from like especially some of his like quicker sketches that fill a lot of his other journals either. They're not like unskilled. They're just not like masterpieces of art. And there is kind of one thing that really stands out, and that's the fact that in the 15th century, it was very, very hard to draw a perfect circle. They didn't have like a little compass, and they didn't have any kind of like drafting tools that we have now. And they probably didn't even have anything that was like made in a perfect circle, because how everything was made by hand. But Da Vinci can draw perfect circles, and whoever wrote and illustrated the Voynich Manuscript could also draw perfect circles.
That's a big deal, because that's just hard in general.
Yeah. I couldn't draw perfect circles.
Don't look at me.
And there's one particular drawing in this book that some people think relates to Da Vinci specifically. There's basically this astrological chart that represents the sign of Aries. There's like the ram's head in it and like the constellations.
Yeah.
And it has these 15 nude pregnant women sitting in birthing tubs, and they're all holding like a string, and then there's like a star attached to the string to paint the picture.
Okay. I was like, and?
But one of these women out of the 15 actually appears to no longer be pregnant, and she actually has a baby with her in her tub, and her like string holding her star is like more elaborate. It's like all stripy and thicker.
Okay.
I don't know what the strings and the stars mean. I mean, other than it's an astrological chart.
Okay.
So some people think that this is a birth chart representing April 15th, because Aries, the 15 women, April 15th. And then because it's in a circle. Mm-hmm. So if you like pictured it like a clock, the woman who has the baby is at like the 10 o'clock area. And Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15th, 1452 at 10 p.m. So people like, he drew his own birth chart.
Okay, so it's like that whole...
And he knows his birth time and you don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Not yet. I'm working on that. I do have to say, it does... Remember when we were talking about room 23 and the number 23?
Yeah.
It
feels a little stretchy
like when
to
people
me.
are trying to like figure something out.
There are other parts of it being Da Vinci that I think, like the handwriting
the circle
comparison and the perfect circle, I do think that's a big deal. This feels like a bit of a stretch to me, but it is talked about a lot as to like, this is like, it relates specifically to his life, and like this is a birth chart.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's one option. File that away, but don't worry, there are many more. In 2016, computing scientists at the University of Alberta in Canada feed this manuscript into their AI. So you did ask about this. Mm-hmm. Their exact field of study is called natural language processing. So essentially it combines like computer science, linguistics, and artificial intelligence. And ultimately their goal is to like create a computer that you could give any document to from any in any language from any period of time.
Yeah,
ever,
and it would like decipher
and it could like recognize it, understand it, and analyze it. So that's their ultimate goal. I think they also just want to make computers understand human language better, so that they're better able to like communicate in AI
and talk to each other.
Stuff, yeah.
So
they have these computers. They feed it like a bunch, like 400 different language options, and they feed in this Voynich manuscript, and it thinks for a long time, but it finally spits out an answer, and it says that it's written in Hebrew. And apparently this wasn't a totally new idea. I guess these scientists, when they first started working on it in 2016, actually thought it might be in Arabic. Mm-hmm. Because essentially there was speculation that it just wasn't in any European language like Italian or Greek or Latin, because if it was, they think somebody would have been able to crack the code before now. So they claim the computer claims it's written in Hebrew, and that it's written in an alphagram, which is basically a way of coding. It's a way of coding language where you write the letters in the word in alphabetical order.
Okay.
So the alphagram for cat, for example, would be ACT. But the problem with that is the alphagram for the word act is also ACT. So like, there are alphagrams that correspond to different, like multiple words could have the same alphagram just because you have
the same letters
in different orders.
Okay.
So that can easily get confusing, and that's not the only challenge. The other big challenge, if it really is in Hebrew and it's really in an alphagram, is that Hebrew is typically written without vowels. So not only are they rearranging the letters in alphabetical order of a word,
but there
are no vowels in that word either. So you have to unrearrange them and figure out what the vowels are.
Okay, so that's complicated.
Yeah. So they're basically going word by word, swapping in whatever letters they can see to like match the modern Hebrew letters, rearranging those letters until they make sense, one word, and then they move on to the next word and do the same thing, but that word has to match the first word because you're trying to make a sentence.
Okay.
And so if you figure out the second word and the first word doesn't match, you might have to go back to the first word and be like, is there a different word I can make that would make this word match?
So it's
a lot.
Okay.
And they did do this for a while, and in doing it, they come up with 3 grammatical phrases that they could decipher using this.
Or they think that
they think, yeah, these are like 3 phrases they came up with. They're not long phrases, but they are, she made recommendations to the priest. That's 1.
Okay.
Man of the house is 2.
Okay.
And me and people is 3, which I don't know if that one's super grammatical to me.
But yeah, but whatever.
So they did that, but then they were like, here's what we think it is. Here's what we think you have to do. And our whole project is not decoding the Voynich Manuscript. So we need to use our fancy ass computer on our actual project. So they kind of dropped it.
So like, not to go back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
but I fear we are.
So he wasn't aware of, the author was not aware of artificial intelligence, and he made up like intelligent robots and stuff like a lot of other people did, right? It's science fiction, it's comedy. But they do travel to this planet where there's like a supercomputer that's kind of like has some emotion, but also is supposed to contain all the knowledge of like the entire universe.
Right.
And like all of the current like AI analysis and stuff that like you just described that happened not that many years ago.
Yeah, this was 2016.
Yeah. Was like not predicted because he wasn't trying to tell the future. He was telling a funny story. But it's really funny that those kind of concepts are like repeated in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. And now that we're kind of here, it's interesting to see that even now it's still not coming up with shit.
No. Well, it came up with these 3 words and then they stopped it. But then in 2017, a German Egyptologist picks up where they left off. And he also thinks the book is in Hebrew. And he basically spends 3 years studying it and actually makes, theoretically, a little bit of progress translating it. And he publishes his findings in 2020. And essentially his conclusion is that this is a Hebrew book of prophecy that can be used to predict the future.
Okay.
And
it kind of sounds low key, like something like that. I mean,
so he ends up translating like a few different bigger passages, more than just those like 3 grammatical sentences the Canadian dudes got. But this is the one that gets talked about the most. So, quote, drink carefully an elixir that delivers the mind. The elixir allows you to speak prophecy and counteract false prophets. Do not speak about the elixir. So
is it kind of like the elixir of life?
Maybe.
Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read his old book, but that's another option. Okay. So basically, we're going to go into other options. You may be able to relate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to this again. I don't know. But essentially, anyone who talks about the book, they have 2 main theories. It's either an encoded, like everything we've talked about, it's an encoded version of a known language, but we can't figure out the code, but it's an actual language. Or it's not encoded at all, and it's just a language we don't know.
Yeah, which is like kind of been an option the whole time. Like,
yeah,
it so also could be something someone fucking made up is like my whole point.
For sure.
It could be an insane person that had their own language they made up, a very intelligent, insane person.
Yeah, it was like a very talented
but like person, maybe they had their own world that they lived in, and this was all spoken through this manuscript that then got lumped in with a bunch of other random shit. It could have been, like I said, a person in like a tower or like a prisoner or some weird dude that lived in a hut and they found this book and they're like, what the hell is this? You know, like, I don't know.
So one camp is like, this is a known language written in code. The other camp is it's not in code at all. This is a language. It's just a language we've never heard of, or it's not human.
Yeah. Aliens.
But basically this second camp's argument is that if you look at the manuscript, it looks like it's written pretty continuously. Like they're not stopping to think every step of the way about like what you would like. You'd have to think about what you want to say and then convert what you want to say into a code like as you go.
Yeah.
And they're arguing that this whoever wrote this was writing in a continuous style, which means it's a language that they understood.
Yeah.
We don't understand it, but they understood it. I will argue, we're going to go into like what they think that could mean as a theory, but I will argue that all of Da Vinci's journals are also written in code, and he writes very seamlessly and continuously, and he writes a lot of them that we know of are in like mirror writing, but he could write it flawlessly, and I have met a woman who can do mirror writing flawlessly.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
very impressive to watch.
Is it like just like she does it for like giggles?
She just thought it was fun to learn, so she taught herself how to do it. And she can do it, and she does it like it's not like I'm thinking about it. She's just like me being like, "Hi, Julie, I'm Allie." But she just like writes it, but in mirror writing.
Oh, that's crazy.
Okay, so in that camp, here's another theory. It's an alien journal. So this author, Eric von Daniken, he writes this book called The Chariot of the Gods, and he puts this theory forward in 1968. And he's kind of one of those guys who claims like all of our ancient technologies are from aliens. So like the pyramids, the Stonehenge, the Easter Island heads.
Like the ancient alien show?
It's basically ancient aliens where it's like we didn't have the technology. So obviously these ancient beings came down, told us how to do it, helped us do it, blah, blah, blah. Because we couldn't have done it. I think that's like kind of racist, frankly, that like we think we're so much smarter now, and if we couldn't figure out how to do it, or we can't do it without technology, that like these ancient people couldn't. But his theory is
basically Stargate, if you've never seen that movie. But
I have not.
Okay. Ellie needs some sci-fi education. I will help you with that.
I don't mind some sci-fi stuff, but like aliens are not really my jam.
It's not that. It's like an ancient alien premise mixed with science. But
I don't know if I just anytime aliens are mentioned, I'm like, it seems like a cop out to me. I don't know.
But they had plants you didn't recognize in the book.
Yeah, I'm not saying it could be aliens. This is an option. You're deciding.
Our government said aliens exist.
That's true. I believe alien life. I think there's life outside of this planet, and I don't know. Just this idea of like, I don't know.
Okay, tell us what the guy said then.
Anyway, so he thinks that he claims that all these technologies, like he thinks aliens came and helped to do all these things. He also cites literary examples. So apparently there's this like map called the Piri-Reis map that was from 1513, but it like shows Earth as it like from above, like from space. And he's like, there's no way to get that point of view in 1513 when you make the map. So therefore,
good point.
Aliens. He has a 2009 book called History Got It Wrong, and he claims that in that book he claims, when he's talking about the Voynich Manuscript, that it was written by an alien astronaut who was stranded on Earth in the 14th century and spent the rest of his life on Earth like recording his observations. And he also thinks that that's why some of the plants are kind of
like not
off, because it's this person, but it's not even not our plants, but he thinks it's like this alien who doesn't understand our world and is like trying to record things. Like it's some of the plants, it's like there'll be like a plant on top, but then it like comes down, and like where you would expect to see a root system, it's like looks like human, like an aorta or something. Like it goes weirdly like anatomical.
Oh.
So they think it's kind of like he was trying to like express what he was seeing, but he didn't. It was all new to him, so he couldn't like fully figure it out. And again, it's like the 1400s. It's not like they had the technology.
It kind of explains a lot of the pregnant people,
right?
In a way.
And he's just like, here's what they do to make other humans. It's weird.
Yeah, and like this is like the woman's cycle, and now she has a baby, and this is her pregnancy, or I don't know. Like, I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm saying like the guy reaching for that makes sense to reach for it,
right? So
that it's a thing.
That's one option in this camp of like it's not in code, it's a language. The other option in this camp of it's not in code, it's a language, is in 2004, these British researchers published a book on the Voynich Manuscript, and their theory is that it's written in glossolalia, which is the language of tongues.
Oh, I should know that
from your conservative Christian upbringing.
Oh, not conservative, evangelical. It's a little different. We believe in Acts, which is when all of the prophet or all of the apostles celebrated, like when Jesus was like in his like tomb and shit. And they had gifts that they would express. One of them, which was speaking in tongues, which I have done. Great. I don't know it as a language.
So it is, they call it the language of tongues, which I guess it is mostly like spoken, I think.
It is.
But they argue that this is thought to happen, like this is what you would write if you were possessed, if you were like taken over and like automatic writing. This is the language that would come out.
There are churches in existence in Christianity, kind of like the ones that do like serpents and like things like that have a lot of like really acting out of like your worship of God. And that is true, that there is a point where like they believe that you are being like the Holy Spirit is prophesying like through you. Yeah. Be it, like God sends the Holy Spirit to you and then you like basically space out and write. Right. And then, or you talk. And then sometimes there's people who be standing next to you being like, okay, well, she's in a trance. She's talking, blah, 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 blah. And then they'd be like, okay, well, she's saying that God wants us to whatever, or like she's bringing healing to the sick person via this action. So there are a lot of church sects that like this kind of stuff makes sense because people have been doing it since like, I don't know, since Jesus times. Yeah. So it's like, it's like one of those things where they're trying to kind of deepen the meaning of that, which it sounds crazy, but it does make sense in like the larger scheme.
So they think that's what this is, that it's glossolalia. It's written by a person who was like possessed, whether by an angel or a demon. That's up for you. But they draw parallels between the Voynich Manuscript and this 12th century German saint called Hildegard von Bingen. And basically she wrote hundreds of pages in what at the time they called it the lingua ignota, like unknown language. But like while she was like speaking to God, or like what you're saying, like possessed by, like the spirit, and like prophesizing all these things. Both of those actually contain these really perplexing illustrations, and she claimed that she was receiving the visions from the divine. And they're not arguing that she wrote this because, again, she's a 12th century saint. We know this is a 15th century document.
They're saying it's like that.
But it's very similar to that. So they're like, we know her and her existence and what she created, and they think we have what she created. They're like, could that not be like something similar that happened to the author of the Voynich Manuscript, and they had this like automatic writing or possessed writing to create this,
or insane writing, whatever.
Sure. So that's another option. And then here is the last option. In 2007, there was this Austrian researcher who conducts his own research, and he like also feeds it into some kind of computer, and he does some like statistics on it, and he finds that the statistical properties of the code are most consistent with meaningless gibberish. He's like, there is no code, there is nothing here.
It's someone who's sitting in the room and they're letting all their crazy out.
So he thinks
that's one fake. Of my theories personally.
Well, he isn't saying it's gibberish, like he thinks it's faked. It's nothing.
Like
someone
just
made this on purpose.
Like, but when what's his nuts bought it, what's his name?
Well, Voynich, because it's the Voynich Manuscript.
Yeah.
But his theory is Voynich faked it
to try to make money, but isn't it like complex in such a way that like? But you said he spoke a lot of languages and stuff, right?
He spoke 3 languages fluently, and then he had a working knowledge of 15.
Is there evidence of him being like able to illustrate things?
That I don't know, but let me tell you about this theory.
Okay.
So Voynich, if it was him, would have had a financial motive. He wants to convince everybody that this is a coded alchemy guide by Roger Bacon. He wants to sell it for a lot of money. A lot of people who are proponents of this theory cite the lack of provenance for the manuscript. Basically, there is no written evidence that proves the existence of this manuscript before Voynich has it. And that letter that we originally talked about as like his evidence from that Marchi guy who was like, this is evidence that like a book this exists. It doesn't describe the book in any way. So he just says he has a coded manuscript attributed to Roger Bacon. There's no like details about what's in it or what it looks like.
So
or
Roger
what
Bacon could have had his own coded manuscript.
Right. And it's not this. And so proponents of this theory claim that Voynich found that letter and saw that and was like, I'm going to make that book.
Got it.
And convince you that that's what it was to sell it. And other components of this are like his story kind of changed throughout. So I said he got it at the Frascati, Italy, at the Jesuit college. Mm-hmm. He originally says he got it at a castle in southern Europe in 1912 when he buys it.
Okay.
In 1915, he actually says the castle was in Austria. And when his wife Ethel dies in 1960, there's a letter that's discovered that it's like said to only be opened like posthumously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he says that he found the manuscript at the Jesuit order in Frascati, Italy.
And like, I guess people who think it's real would be like, well, yeah, he did that on purpose.
He didn't want to like reveal his, like where it came from. He didn't want to reveal his sources as a rare book dealer. Like he was trying to be kind of cagey about it.
Yeah.
But the people who think he's a faker is like, he made up a bunch of different stories and finally landed on this one.
I mean, it does date back.
So yeah, here it does use, I think that's the biggest tick against it. Like it uses these materials from the 15th century. Like we know that that's true. So it uses materials from the 15th century. It's incredibly detailed with all these pages that fold out in different directions. It basically, everyone says it would have taken like a genius level expert in antique books to pull this off, but he was.
Yeah, true. And it also would have taken time too. And
it would have definitely taken time. So the people who think he could have faked it say shortly before he purchased the Voynich manuscript, he purchased the entire collection of the Libreria Franceschini in Italy, which is a private collection of over 500,000 books.
500,000?
500,000.
That is a lot of books.
500,000 books, pamphlets, maps, and other manuscripts. And potentially, we don't have any like written like confirmation of this.
Yeah.
But potentially there would have been kind of a large amount of like blank 15th century parchment he could have used. And there's also like people were like, there's ways to find blank parchment from that time. Like there's pages in books that are, or other manuscripts that are just like purposely left blank that you could have like taken.
You could have gotten access to those materials. Yeah. That does make sense.
Voynich has training in chemistry from his time when he was a student at the University of Moscow before he became like a full-fledged revolutionary. And it's known that for his own collections, he sometimes used that like knowledge to create different inks and pigments to restore those documents with the inks and pigments. But Voynich ultimately was never able to sell it. So if he did fake it, he did too good of a job because he was never able to convince anybody that it was a Bacon manuscript, and he was never able to like decode it to say like this is what it says, and he never sold it. So I kind of don't think, I mean, it's the least fun if he faked it.
Yeah, of course.
But I also don't really think like, yes, he had some access and he had some skills, and I could see like just having it being like, oh, I could make a lot of money if I made this makes sense to me. But
it's a lot. I mean,
it's a lot of work.
Wouldn't you put like an Easter egg in there somewhere or something that was like just clear enough that it was like, oh,
right. It's a lot of work, and B, it's a lot of work to have something that like, if he was trying to do that, like you should have made it way easier to decode and to figure out that it's Roger Bacon's if you wanted to sell it as that. And if he is so good of a forger that he forged this perfectly, like we cannot dispute that this document is from the 15th century, why wouldn't he have dispute one from the 13th century?
Like he could have gone back and done what you said, but maybe not 254 pages, but it could have been 35 pages of like code with text and pictures.
And the other part of that is like, okay, say he did it, or just like, I don't think he did it, but it has been tested and retested by very advanced science and techniques that did not exist when he was alive. So like, is he really that talented that he could create a forgery that good in the 1910s that we cannot disprove today? like, yeah, you maybe had the paper and you could have like made up the inks, but usually there's something. It's like you can use some of the same materials in 1910 that they had in the 15th century, but like they're like literal like isotopes or things in the air that like exist now because we are more modern civilization than they were in the 1500s
and like where it was
1400s that's
made
like,
and found and like all the other things.
He created something so good in 1910s with like not the technology we have today that we can't disprove it today.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense. Personally.
Well, like,
that's my least favorite option.
Yeah.
Second is probably aliens, but whatever. But as of 2016, Yale has scanned all 234 pages. So it's all available on their website. You can buy like books of the Voynich Manuscript, but you can look at it for free on their website, and it's available to anyone to take a crack at solving the puzzle.
Have you tried to solve it?
No.
Well, I was thinking, okay, the human mind
want to know, but
has like really unlimited potential that has not been tapped like scientifically.
Yeah.
And people that are quote unquote geniuses, people that look beyond like, you know, like Stephen Hawking or whatever, like people whose minds we can't understand do have the ability to, like Leonardo da Vinci, right? Like there are some people that are just beyond the scope of like the average human brain and like what they see and what they can process and what they can make. So that guy, there is a % possibility that guy was that freaking smart, but it doesn't make any sense if his motivation was to
I think his motivation doesn't make sense. And then also it's like you had this letter that I think was from him that you were supposed to open after his wife's death. That's like, if you did fake it and you never sold it and she never sold it, just tell us. Why would you be like, oh, I actually found it at this monastery, not the story I told you guys? Okay. That's what he confesses to, not confesses to like, hey, I made that up.
Yeah. Or like, you know, my friend John was a crazy human and I got him to, you know, make this manuscript for me in the, like from parchment that I purchased in the 1500s. Like, I mean, it's like, I guess you're right. It's a really shitty deathbed confession if it's not really a confession. The confession is...
Right, the confession is, I didn't get it where I told you I got it. I got it from this Jesuit college in Italy, not... The whole thing's a fake.
Has anybody, like in the research you read, did anybody go back and kind of, like that journey of like the book, like what, before it was at the Jesuit college, just say they went there and found that it was really there? Like, is there any
I don't know. I don't know. Like,
I know it's hard to track things that long ago, but like, also there was like,
I haven't seen anything about that.
Can we just talk about all the wars that happened right after 1912? So it's like, and before,
but he had it. We know he had it. We know where it went everywhere from 1912 on.
Yeah, but before that, it's like hard to even prove how it got there too.
Right. We have no idea how it got to the Jesuit. I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest things that detractors say that it's fake, because we have no record of all of its existence prior to him buying it in 1912. But do we have records? I don't know. My favorite. What's your pick? What do you think it is?
I would say I'm of two minds. One of which is my original theory, which
aliens.
Someone literally was crazy and their mind produced it.
Sure, that's possible. And it's like, it's not just like, I feel you have to be the right type of crazy where you're like, hey, I'm going to write in gibberish, but I'm going to do it really methodically and really neatly. And like also draw these like really amazing drawings.
Yeah, but there are people that do live in these other worlds.
Yeah.
They're mentally ill and
insane. Like, it's not like just scribbles everywhere.
It's not necessarily like that. Like there are people that exist that world or that language could have been something that was their own entirely. I don't know. I kind of like the Hebrew thing was kind of interesting.
That was interesting. I mean, they actually translated some stuff.
Alien. I mean, I know I like science fiction, but like the alien thing is not my main theory at all.
I don't think it was an alien astronaut that got stuck on Earth in the 1400s and was just like, I'm gonna write a little book.
That's kind of, I mean, that's just like a movie or like a TV show or something that, you know, like Resident Alien or whatnot. It's, I don't know. What's your?
I don't know. I kind of like Da Vinci.
He makes sense.
I just don't.
He did so many other things.
He had so many other things that we know are his and are in a code that we know. Like we figured out his code, and like this code we can't figure out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope it's just like it is like a future prophecy, and like one day someone will be able to read it and will like can change whatever timeline we're currently on.
Yeah, well, whatever this one is, Jesus. Yeah, it's like everyone becomes like it's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like we all become one through like their song or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
I haven't seen that either.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, not all the things I'm referencing are like of my generation either. These are things that were like around when
I'm aware of its existence.
Well, part of the not to get distracted again, but part of the premise of that movie is that these two knuckleheads like write music that unites the entire world, and the world becomes peaceful and better in the future. Great. So the guy comes back from the future and goes, "Hey, if you don't complete this task,
time travel.
Yeah, if you don't complete this task, then this peaceful world that we all exist in won't happen."
Maybe it's time travel. Maybe it's like
that made a little bit of sense to me. Like
of 2100.
Or what if it is aliens actually do come hang out with us?
And then it's like, okay, and it just they time traveled back, left it there. Or, I don't know.
Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
It didn't really. I lost my thread. Listen, I don't know, but I think it's so cool, and I want to know what it says so bad.
I just want to kind of see pictures. I'll do my best.
Yeah, we'll put in. There are a lot of pictures.
Our audience.
We'll put in some pictures.
Yeah, I'll splice in some pictures. It's open source data, so I can actually post them, and you guys can look at them.
Yeah.
We'll include some notes.
The Voynich library. Don't get mad at me, Yale.
Is that how you say it?
I think. Oh, that's how you say it.
Okay, I don't know.
Oh,
what's it called? Voynich.
Voynich.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't go to Yale.
And neither did I.
I don't know the name of the library either.
Well, I read about it in my research.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, I was like, I thought you looked at me like, duh.
I'm saying I was like, it's at the Yale Voynich library.
If y'all want,
if Yale would be mad about this video and not giving them the appropriate credit, and also Yale is not watching this video.
No, but if you are going to Yale and you want to comment on this video,
the Bulldogs,
please do. Is that what? Oh yeah, from Gilmore Girls.
I only know that from Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I know. I realize that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my story.
We ended on Gilmore Girls, so that's a full circle right there. Maybe Lorelai or Rory wrote it. I don't know.
No.
I think that's cool. And here at Blackthorn, we're not necessarily here to solve mysteries, but we're here to explore mysteries.
But I want to know.
Allie will spend the rest of her days trying to decode.
I won't do that because I just don't think I'm smart enough to do that, frankly.
What if you just know? Like, what if you look?
What if I look? I mean, I've looked at it.
I know.
I have looked at it, and I wasn't just like, oh.
Well,
I can read it.
Can you remember? God, what book it was? Where like the person had like a special ability where like they looked at like a language. Oh yeah. Well, okay.
Was it the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No, it was not. This was Wicked. She Elphaba. She gets to like see the Grimoire, and like she's like the Grimoire, whatever it's called.
A grimoire?
I don't know, whatever it is called.
I mean, I haven't seen Wicked, but I'm pretty sure it's a grimoire.
I don't know if that's what they call it though, because they call stuff different. Whatever.
Again,
correct me.
I haven't seen Wicked.
Anyways, I haven't seen
any cultural thing that Julie has brought up.
Wicked is sad that you haven't seen it because it's amazing. But so part of the thing is like they get her to go to like the castle and in Emerald City, and it turns out that she has the ability to read the grimoire that nobody else could, and everyone faked that they could.
Gotcha.
Spoiler alert.
I wish that was the case.
That's what I'm saying.
And I was like, I looked at it and I was like, you guys, this is very clear.
What if I go look at it right now?
Oh my God,
then I'm just like, oh yeah,
like obviously
it's a cookbook. Like,
this is how you make the Philosopher's Stone.
Oh yeah. And then you have a circle of pregnant lady babies and stuff. I don't know.
I mean, who doesn't want that?
It sounds very astrological, which is
there is a lot of
like, maybe it's someone.
I mean, there's definitely astrology things. And it's like not everything was like not related, because they had the astrological chart, whether or not you believe that is Da Vinci's like birth chart or not. Like it was the astrological chart of Aries. Like Aries exists. We know what that looks like. We know what the stars look like. Aries is a thing. It's just that there were also other ones that were like, we know what that is.
I think this is my last theory, not theory, but my last idea is that there were a lot of like tribes and remote peoples and Bedouins, and some people didn't have written language until someone else met them and helped them make a written language.
Sure.
So theoretically, if somebody had a written language that we didn't know about, and maybe it was an ancient language that we weren't like aware of, this could have been somebody like making something that represented a people that maybe don't exist anymore.
That's definitely
like
possible.
That seems like,
I mean, I don't have an argument for that other than would they have had access to these materials?
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Like maybe maybe they're the last one, or they
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just anthropologically, like it kind of sounded like something that could have been plausible.
Right, because if it's like a tribe or something with no written language.
No like record of written language.
Right, but then it's like they probably didn't have a lot of like calf skin parchment lying around, and like the inks needed to write it if they didn't write it, or it didn't survive. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just think.
And then there's just aliens. So
then there's just aliens. But that's to me, that's almost as boring as it being a fake, frankly.
You don't know which.
I want it to be humans, and I want to know what it means.
Well, it is 2025. AI is supposed to be getting a lot, more intelligent. Maybe someone will discover another.
But it's also AI is like, it's artificial intelligence. Yes, it has all the things, but we're still feeding it the information that it's depicting those things from. So if it's not a language we're feeding it, it's not going to be like, oh, I can figure. You know what I mean?
No, I meant to find the origin. So like,
right.
Like if not necessarily decipher it, but maybe because there's such a vast amount of information. If this is also goes back to triggers. If you ask the right question,
sure,
then you can get the answer you're looking for. Well, you don't know the question.
I don't know.
You just know what the answer means.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out.
You really need to read that book. Okay. This is not an advertisement for a book that I happen to like a lot. I think it's really, really fascinating. It's a lot to think about. And I have no answers. So
unfortunately, neither do I, but I really want to know. Let us know what you think.
Having this on YouTube and just like around, I really, please comment and talk. I'm curious to see what people's theories are, and maybe you can enlighten us a little bit. If
you have other theories, let us know. There is a girl on TikTok who she kind of claimed to have solved it, and then she backtracked, but there was so many videos. I was like, I can't watch all of these.
We're not going to do that
and distill it down enough before I have to do this that I didn't do it. But I originally saw one video. She's like, I solved it. And I was like, tell me what it is. And then she didn't for like 5 videos. And I was like, I'm over it.
It's like the one where like they make a cake or something and they're supposed to like make a rainbow cake or something. And they go like, we're going to do it. We're going to like put the icing on the cake. We're going to do it. And then like 45 minutes later.
She wasn't being that annoying. I think it was
I'm just saying like
yeah, I don't think she was doing it to purposely be like, I'm going to draw this out as long as possible. But it was like, I figured it out. I did some stuff. I have to like tell somebody, I don't know. And then I watched like her most recent like video that was like, okay, I don't think I figured it out, but I have some theories and whatever.
Okay. Well, I mean,
people are working on it and I will be tracking it.
Yeah. So if we get any new information, we will definitely share it with you guys.
And also if you know anything, please tell me.
Yeah, please. Okay, well, this was our first Blackthorn After Dark. Thanks for joining us in our, lair. What are we calling this? Our office?
Yeah.
I don't have, sorry, it's right behind me. There's still some wine in there if you really want to.
No, it's fine.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right, cheers.